Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, do I have a treat for you today. Before I introduce our guest, here's a quote. Self control makes the man. The man without discipline is a boy full of reactions rather than a man of good actions. Greek proverb. Our guest today is the manliest of mans, the one, the only, the mortgage maker, the myth. I ran out of M words that aren't like negative. Bill Mervin is back. If you listen to the podcast, roughly just under 4% of the current episodes released, he's been on, or he's been, no, of the current episodes released, not the full amount. The math is off. The math, because I said it wrong. Never mind. Bill's a regular on the show. I was counting what's released versus how many times we recorded. He's a staple on the show. Even if we were to release all episodes that have ever been recorded, it'd be something like closer to 2%, which is a significant amount for one person. It's definitely top 15 quartile. And just like in the mortgage business, top quartile in the country. He's also top quartile of our newest generation, those living of how many children they've had versus the Great Depression era. He's got 5 children that I'm aware of. They're all wonderful. And before I take up any more of our valuable time in this introduction, today I wanted to talk about Bill. Yeah, I'm clearly doing that, but about the Fed just did something apparently. So that's interesting. And among life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And it's a Friday, it's late, and we're doing this. So that'll tell you about Bill's character. How are you, Bill?
I'm good, man. Got no complaints. Like I say, here at the office on a Friday, just grinding it out, trying to close out the week strong. And yeah, lot going on, man, in the finance space and in the Fed space and also in the world, right? In that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So hell of an introduction, man. I don't know. It's a high bar for me to clear, but I'll certainly do my best.
Yeah, I'm hoping one of these days, these great introductions I give, the guests will just start turning it over to me, right? But meaning, they'll just start interviewing me, but that has yet to happen. So I'm going to keep leaning in and giving some meaningful introductions. I have a question around working on a Friday. Why not just pack it in?
Why not just pack it in? Hey, that's a great question, but for me, well, I'm kind of reminded at this moment of it's funny, a guy that I didn't love during his career, Kobe Bryant. Just because he was a Laker, and Lakers kind of in that category as a Philly fan of like Yankees and Dallas, and of course I never quite got over him killing us in the 2001 NBA Finals. But after his passing, I've really come to appreciate his work ethic and his mindset and all of these things. And I'm reminded of the interview he did of believe they were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals, and he was straight-faced as always, and the interviewer said, come on, man, why aren't you smiling? No cause to celebrate or anything like that. And he goes, what's there to celebrate? Is the job finished? Job's not finished. So, job's not finished until the job's not finished. And, there's pre-approvals to work up. There's deals to kind of just always some issues to always kind of fix behind the scenes, right? And make things work. And there's things to prepare for next week. And so it's just kind of always been in my DNA to, I don't stop working when I get tired or whatever. It's like getting close to the holidays, maybe start taking easier days. But right now there's a lot of stuff on the plate. And so I work till it's done.
Yeah, and as of this recording, it is near the holidays. Do you think that, or it is in the holiday time? Do you think that a lot of people are taking time off now?
Hell yeah.
It
I
seems
know
like
they
a
are.
silly question.
Yeah, I know they are. Right. And I'll do a
Is
little of that. In fact,
Q1
next
is
Thursday,
Q1
in fact, that's another reason. What were you gonna say?
no, is Q1 made? And that's the question. Is Q1 made in at the end of Q4?
I shared a memory from my Facebook timeline, that pops up every couple years. And I shared it about 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, even. It was probably November when I wrote it the first time. And the winners are made in Q4, right? I mean, that's where you're sowing the seeds, 100%. And I think you got a natural advantage because of people's inclination to kind of write it off for Q4 and dial down. And
How do we overcome the objections of the work-life balancers? How do you overcome that objection
well, I
so we
mean,
don't get
listen,
relegated?
I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily any longer like advocating for like the grind culture of like, you're not anything unless you're in first and out last and all that. I mean, I'm not quite the workaholic that I was in the past, but um, I mean, the fact is that, in any situation, business, competition, right? You want to look where you've got the edge, where you've got the advantage, right? And so the natural time to have an advantage and maybe put a little extra effort in is when the other people are playing soft, right? And so, I mean, or what was that? Elon, right? He's like, if you work 50 hours a week and I work 100 hours a week, I'm going to get everything done twice as quick, right? So right now, that people, I'm probably misquoting that, of course, but right now, people are taking it easy. People are kind of enjoying the fruits of their labor for the year. So, I mean, in terms of how to address it, I don't know. I mean, I just think that I'm not advocating for working 80-hour weeks right now. I'm just saying if you got an advantage and now's a good time to pick up an edge on your competition by putting in a little extra effort, then, do it. And then I was alluding to a moment ago, like next Thursday, two of the kids are off of school. One of them we're going to sign out at lunchtime on Thursday, and we're going to go up to the Poconos for the weekend. So, I'm not until Sunday. So but because I know I'm going to do that, I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to work ahead, and I'm going to make sure I still get my time in and get my, get in the effort I need to get in.
Keep this a culturally balanced interview, being that you mentioned Elon. How is this not toxic masculinity?
Maybe it is. I don't have a problem with that.
I tried to keep a straight face.
I think we need a
I'm
little
being a
more. I
bit
mean,
insensitive, I think, though.
toxic is that's I think that adjective was picked by a loser. Masculinity. I think we got to stop running from it. I think we need to stop treating it like a dirty word. Right. So much of what we've got today as a society, as a culture, has been built by men, and there's been massive contribution from women as well. But this idea that somehow, the masculine frame is something that we need to feel bad about or guilty about, I don't buy into that. So maybe it is toxic masculinity. I don't know. But I don't care either. So does that
What do
answer
you
your question?
think? What do you believe are the most important ingredients of a successful 2024, 2025 for a mortgage originator that is interested in not only staying in the business, thriving?
Well, I mean, to give you that answer, I feel like got to look in the rear view a little bit, because now that doesn't mean if you haven't done these things that you're screwed, right? But I've been saying for a long time, right? Like the last tail end of 22 and 23 have been very challenging years, right? And so like, what do you do? Like a good operator in those types of environments, right? You can either hide under your desk, or you can pivot and use that time that you have that you're not doing as much direct loan work and invest it. And I've been saying for a while that this is a seed sowing season. That's a lot of S's there. And so a lot of that is already done, right? So like if you have used the last 12 months, we'll call it, to improve your deliverables, to improve your processes, to take the space and apply some of that mental energy to, kind of the endeavors of up-leveling your business that you don't have time to do when the volume ticks up, then you've kind of created a better chassis to build on when the volume picks up. So I think a lot of that work should have already been done in terms of like that. So for us, that example has been, he's been here a little more than a year, but we got this young guy that we've kind of trained up, and he's farming our past client database and scheduling annual financial reviews. And so, we would sporadically unfortunately, I would cherry pick the clients that I felt would be best fit for post-closing calls or annual financial reviews or annual check-ins, as opposed to creating a system to do that consistently with everybody. So the last 6 to 9 months, we've built that in as part of our process. We would do upfront underwrites, TBD underwrites. We used to do them kind of a la carte as well. Like if we had either a client we knew was bidding in a particular competitive area, and so we wanted to give them a competitive edge, so we would do the upfront underwrite. Or if we had a file that had a little hair to it and we wanted to give them and ourselves more peace of mind that the deal would go through smoothly, we would do it. But now we've kind of trained up a transaction coordinator. Every once in a while with volume, we'll get a little bit behind, but we pretty much across the board do that to every client as part of our process. So there's 2 examples of things that there'd be no way for us to implement things like that during a busy season. But we've now built that in and created those habits and made that part of our process. And those things are going to pay the dividends in 24 and 25 because we've already put in that work. In terms of for those that maybe haven't done that, or for those that have, in addition to that, listen, I mean, it's going to be busier. I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster year, but it's definitely going to be busier. I think the baseline projection is for like a 20% pickup in originations this year, and then another 25. I think I think they're thinking we're going to close out at like 1.6 trillion or 165. Now remember, in 21 we did 4.1, I think. So 60% pullback. I think the projections for next year currently are around 195. And then I think they're around 2.25 trillion for 25. So it's still manageable. But I think that, you have to be, and I mean, I say till I'm blue in the face, right? You have to be a problem solver, right? So a lot of these, whether it's finding the hot buttons for agents, right? And that'll change from time to time. So there was a period of time where it was competitive bids, right? So we put our what we call bulletproof buyer together, which is a series of things that we were doing to get our clients' offers accepted, right? And so for a while, that was the problem that we were solving for agents. Then it was contingent offers, right? And so we got out ahead of these bridge financing options and these options to be non-contingent, and that was kind of what we were really playing up. When rates hit their peak, it was affordability was the issue, right? So if we can convince people to that it's still a good time to buy, and here's why, but the only short-term challenge is affordability. How do we solve for that? And that was the buy downs and different things like that that were big. So I think it's continuing to keep your finger on the pulse to what those hot buttons is, and then solve those problems either for the people, the partners you work with, or certainly for the customers that you solve. So the what will change and evolve, but if you're just serving up the same stuff as everybody else, then you're gonna continue to compete with a lot of folks. But if you can differentiate yourself in those ways, then I think that gives you the edge. So, and it's just do that enough times and gain market share, and hustle, and I think you'll be okay.
Or you think refis are going to get some momentum in the interim, like few
I
months?
mean, it's relative. I mean, considering that refis have been almost zero, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think refis will get a little momentum. I think there'll continue to be situational refis. We're doing one right now in an estate buyout. There'll be some cash outs, but yeah, I think that, when you have those folks that were at the, high 7, low 8s, and you start dipping down into the, high 6s, mid 6s, I think that, in our strategy right now, I'm okay to say, because most people will listen and not actually do it, is to get out ahead of it, right? They're going to be getting a million phone calls every 0.5% rate and drop with people telling them go, 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 that have commission breath, that are just dying for a deal. In a lot of these cases, showing some patience is going to pay off, right? And so when you got everybody else telling you refinance, and you got people going and saying, hey, let's take a look at the data. If this snowball is just starting to go down the other side of the mountain, let's not be over anxious, and let's try to show some patience in when we execute the trade, so to speak.
Are you referencing the idea to call clients, past clients, and actually talk to them before you need something from them? Or
Oh, I mean, that's a given. I mean, we talk to people about that. We talk to people about that during our upfront process. We talk to people about that during our post-closing call. You've heard me say this many times, right? We're debt managers, right? I call our process mortgages under management, the same way that people have assets under management, right? And so we tell people that two things. One, when rates start going down, you're going to get a million phone calls. Everybody's going to try to get you to rush to refinance. We want to make sure that we're doing it. We don't have a crystal ball, but we want to make sure that we're doing it data-driven, and that we're looking at everything, and that we're making a choice on the timing at the best time to do it. And there's times where rates are up 0.5%, and Facebook and all the Google ads are saying rates are down, it's a great time to buy. So there's always going to be those types of things out there. Whereas if we set targets, right, same way that you might have price targets as a financial advisor, we say, hey, in your particular scenario, we're looking for a drop of about this much for it to make sense. We identify that up front during our post-closing calls, and then we're proactively managing that for our clients, reaching out to them as we approach that target, and then getting them prepared to move forward as we hit that pre-planned target, so that we're not making emotional decisions about refinancing.
What do you see your peers struggling with the most right now?
Differentiation. There's definitely been a lot of folks that have left the business, but there's still a lot of folks that are hanging on, and they're desperate, and they're just trying like a scattergun approach to get out in front of folks, which I'm sure that's what I would be doing in the absence of a better plan. And so the folks that control the most amount of business are getting inundated with that. And then the question is, how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself? So, that's kind of what I alluded to 5 minutes ago of, what is that particular hot button in the market right now? And how do we position ourselves as a problem solver? Anybody can loan funds, but, how do we solve problems? Or, as I like to say, I don't mind being a problem solver, but I prefer to be a problem avoider. And so that gets into whether a mortgage person is just a a debt salesperson or whether they're an advisor, right?
You did a Facebook Live
I did
or a Facebook video.
one of them. I
It was
did
a
one of
lot.
each.
Was it live?
I did one of each in the last month or so.
What was it like?
Uh, it was good. I was a little rusty. I think I shared, I don't know if I shared it in this format, but like I know I shared it with you. Like, I did get two things went into my hiatus from social media. One was the fact that I dove so much into video and like marketing, and I tried to get ahead of that. And I think I was a little ahead of that, but I went all in on it, and I feel like I lost my way a little bit, and tried to be something that I wasn't. And so there was a natural period where I wanted to pull back from that and get back to the basics and the
Hmm.
core, and the fact that while those things are important at the heart, I'm a mortgage advisor, and to really focus on our core business. And then additionally, social media just didn't put me in a great headspace, and I find it challenging to kind of stay above it and just kind of use it for what I want to use it for and not get pulled into the fray of the current culture. And that brought negativity into my life. And so there was a period where I wanted to back away. So for that reason, I stayed away from Facebook in particular, and I was only lightly on Instagram for a while. Uh, but the fact is, I know how powerful of a tool it is, and I needed to set that aside. So for me, it was I didn't really have a great plan, but I just knew that I needed to do it, and I needed to just start getting back out there in front of folks because I feel like we have a message that needs to be heard.
Was it easier than you thought?
Yeah, yeah. I think when I plan too much is when it gets challenging. I overthink things, so I just let it rip and just kind of speak about the stuff that I speak about all day long with clients, and it came out okay.
What would be 5 topics that you'd address on your next 5 videos?
Oh man, you put me on the spot, Jay. I think one would just be, and now I think it's not really too foreshadowing. I think we're seeing the drop in rates, and due to the drop in rates, I think that you're going to get another buying frenzy, and I think that you'll continue to see the supply issues, and so I think it's preparing folks for that. Even though we're starting to see that rate drop, I think that there are still a segment of people that are stuck in, is it a good time to buy or not? Am I buying at the top? Am I overpaying? And so I think that it would be addressing that. I got this whole long thing I go into with, all the data points of why I don't think that we're going to see any sort of drop in a meaningful way. Certainly in our marketplace, there's always hyper local things like the San Fran market or Austin market or Denver market, or things that are specific to them. But when you talk about kind of middle America, if you will, the data is pretty solid in my opinion. I think another thing would be talking about, for a while the spread was so much that it was tough to find value, but even folks that are locked into a lower interest rate, of showing them how how refinancing, even if you're jumping up to a higher rate, whether it's certain debt consolidation, or whether it's folks that are scared to move due to the interest rate that they have, and show them how it can be affordable, and the wealth that they're going to create, through the new home. I'll just give you one example, and this isn't exactly on that point, but I have this one folks that right now don't qualify for a standard mortgage. And when we look at like a non-QM loan in our space, a non-qualified mortgage, it might cost them 1 or 1.5% higher, right? So they're looking at a $300,000 loan, and they're going to spend, but then we can put a plan in place to get them into a standard loan in 2 years, let's call it, right? So in that case, if you're paying 1.5% annually on a $300,000 loan, you're going to pay an extra $4,500 in interest over the course of 2 years. That's $9,000 in additional interest that you're going to incur, right? And so people look at it and they say rates are always high, and you show them something with an 8.5 or 9%, right, or 8%, and they're like, that's too high. I can't do that. I won't pay that. Okay, let's back away from that. Let's not be emotional for a moment, right? We just said, right, here's how we can get to a conventional loan in 2 years. Here's what it's actually going to cost you, $9,000, right? And now over the course of those 2 years, let's totally set aside the intangibles of owning a home in a different area that you want to raise your family, or et cetera, right? Like there's intangible value in that by itself. But if I got a $300,000 loan or a $350,000 home, and those home prices rise at 3% annually, in a lot of these markets, it's 4 or more still for the next 5 years, you're going to pick up 10% annually in appreciate 10K annually in appreciation. Plus you're going to have debt reduction, right? You're going to have principal reduction, amortization. So I might spend an extra $9,000 in interest, but I'm picking up $20,000 to $25,000 in equity and net worth through, again, amortization or capital appreciation, right? So I'm still coming out ahead of the curve. And then you add in the intangibles about it. But some people just see that shock value of the higher interest rate. And without somebody to actually break that down for them and show them the way, they just make a knee-jerk decision and say, now's not the time, blah, 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 blah.
Does it become more of a conversation around, can you afford can you budget for the short-term monthly bump to
Yes,
get the
yes.
investment in the net worth?
To the extent that, yes, to the extent that in this particular case, the only reason that I wouldn't ultimately advise somebody is if the monthly nut was too high, right? So yes, to the extent that in terms of whether that's an
Because they
appropriate
get the net worth growth.
yeah, so yes, meaning I only going to pick up the net worth growth if I'm able to float the cash flow, right? So
Same way somebody invests in like their IRA or whatever.
here's the thing, right? I mean, and this doesn't work for everybody, depending on the amount of down payment they have.
Sure.
But here's a discussion we'd have with somebody, right? Okay, you have $100,000, right? And you could put $100,000 down, right? Well, instead, let's put $80,000 down, right? And now our monthly payment is $400, or let's say $500 a month higher than what we had hoped it would be. Right? Well, $500 a month times 12 months is $6,000. $6,000 times 2 years is $12,000. Right? I'm not saying that everybody is going to follow this exact method, right? But it still helps to understand it this way.
Yeah.
Now I take that extra 20 grand I set aside by not making a larger down payment, right? And I take a $500 a month. If I wanted my payment to be 3,000 and it's 3,500, I put $20,000 less down, right? So that's going to add even a little more to my payment. But now I've got this $20,000. I can sit it in a high yield savings account these days and get 4 to 5%, right? And now I take $500 a month as a withdrawal, as a distribution from this high yield savings account, which is still liquid. I transfer it into my operating account that's paying my mortgage. And I've effectively created the $3,000 a month payment that I was actually targeting while holding on to some additional cash in the meantime. So there's ways to solve these problems almost all the time.